Hello, everyone. Aristides here. Make sure to follow both the podcast and myself at Motley Experience. That's MOTLEYXPERIENCE, motleyexperience.com as well. And for me, you can follow me at ATMarousas. That's ATMAROUSAS on Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok. And now we'll get to the show. Life is a journey of exploration, learning, and growth. Basically, the world is full of fascinating stuff. Join me, Aristides Marousas, as I uncover interesting facts and discuss big ideas on Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience. Experience your world. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience. In this episode, I'm going to go into daylight saving time. Now, we actually just this last week switched back to standard time, but I thought the whole concept of a daylight saving time was really interesting. I heard growing up that it had something to do with with farmers back in the 19th century or 20th century. And so I decided to do some research and see what I could find and then share it with you guys. So we're about to do that. A few surprises were discovered in the making of this episode. So daylight saving time in the United States this year began Sunday, March 10th and ended last week on Sunday, November 3rd. So in March, we sprung forward an hour, while in early November, we fell back an hour. We are currently in what is known as standard time or winter time or normal time. Now, this all began back in 1905 when Englishman William Willett was struck by this idea of moving clocks forward 80 minutes so people could enjoy more daylight. Over the subsequent years, he published a brochure and even campaigned for the British Parliament to adopt summertime. He died in 1915 at 58 years of age, just 1 year before his idea was adopted. Now, a bit of a kicker here is that the country that implemented this idea was Germany. In April 30th, 1916, the Germans began using daylight saving time in order to conserve electricity during World War I. The British very soon followed suit. Now, World War I was the impetus as well for the United States to adopt daylight savings time. And they did this on March 31st, 1918. Now, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, while it's believed that this time change was done in favor of American farmers so that they had more time to work the fields, the truth was that the agriculture industry was very much opposed to it. So farmers' schedules, they're reliant on the sun, not on a clock. So the switching of time actually made their work more difficult. Just as an example, cows are not going to suddenly change when they need to be milked just because the hour is different. And this, of course, makes it difficult for dairy farmers to meet shipping schedules. The agriculture industry led the fight for the repeal of daylight saving time in 1919, and it was actually urban interests instead of rural that wanted daylight savings time in place so that people could have more daylight to spend at retail outlets and recreational businesses. Now, while daylight saving time was repealed at the national level, many states and cities continued the practice. Despite a brief return at the national level during World War II, state and local governments could change their times whenever they wanted. In 1963, Time magazine, and I think it's a bit funny that it was Time magazine that did this, referred to this whole situation as, quote, a chaos of clocks. Now, one extreme example was back in 1965 when there were 23 different start and end dates in the state of Iowa alone. In 1966, the Uniform Time Act was passed, which standardized daylight saving time beginning the last Sunday in April and ending the last Sunday in October. States did have the option, however, of remaining on standard time all year long. However, if states want to make daylight saving time permanent, they need approval from Congress. In 2005, President George W. Bush extended daylight saving time to begin the second Sunday of March and end the first Sunday of November, and this went into effect in 2007. Psst, hey you. Yeah, you over there listening to Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience. So if you're already listening to Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience, why not take that next step and head on over to themotleyexperience.com/connect. Then all you got to do is enter your email address and you instantly become a part of the Motley Experience community. By doing this, you'll get the weekly insider newsletter that gives you all the latest and greatest from the Motley Experience, including updates from your favorite podcast, Stuff Explained. Again, themotleyexperience.com/connect. Retcon Industries provides tailor-made music for professional wrestling, podcasts, trailers, and more, while also releasing their own original music. I personally have used Retcon Industries for professional wrestling and also for this podcast. All the music you hear in this podcast is by Retcon Industries. For more information, go to www.retconindustries.com or email my good friend Greg at retcongreg@gmail.com. You can also visit them on Facebook and Instagram at Retcon Industries. At the moment, Hawaii and Arizona, with the exception of Arizona's Navajo Nation, do not observe daylight saving time, along with several U.S. territories. This may be largely because the nighttime brings cooler and more bearable temperatures. Under daylight saving time, people are exposed to these higher temperatures at an earlier hour. Now, while the main purpose of daylight saving time was to conserve energy, research done has not shown any real savings at all in electricity, and if they have, it's pretty negligible, like 1%. In fact, in hotter areas, daylight saving time actually adds additional cost through the increased demand for cooling. Now, even though Germany was the first country to implement daylight saving time, the town of Port Arthur, Ontario, Canada, was the first known locality to use it in 1908. About 40% of countries worldwide use daylight saving time, though start and end dates vary. This March, for example, the European Union voted to end daylight saving time in 2021, opting instead to allow individual countries to decide whether they want to permanently use summertime or wintertime. Now, studies have shown that the transition from daylight saving time back to standard time in the fall can trigger mental illnesses such as bipolar disorder and seasonal depression. An Australian study found that male suicide rates increased in the immediate days following the time shifts in both the spring and fall. And just from a personal note, I definitely feel susceptible to the seasonal depression part. There's just something about getting out of work at 5 p.m. and it being nighttime that really throws me off. And I've heard that happens to a lot of people as well. So if you're feeling that way, you're not alone. It's actually quite common. But that was just a little tangent. And the reason for this is because, it disrupts the circadian rhythm. And this also has physical consequences in addition to the mental ones. The good news is that the disruption has been found to pass in the days and weeks that follow this change in time. Now, there are some benefits, proven benefits, I suppose, that include more time for productivity when we're living in daylight saving time, and also outdoor recreation. Some studies have also shown that pedestrian fatalities fall about 13% during the dusk and dawn hours. And that's just because there's more light now when we're in daylight saving time. And also because, supposedly anyways, of this increase in light outside, robberies are also found to decrease by about 7% during daylight saving time. Now, all of this can be a little bit confusing. I know I had to do a few mental gymnastics to really figure all this out and straighten out in my head with the hours going back and forward. So to be clear, changing the clocks obviously does not actually create more daylight. Instead, what it does is that we are exposed to more sunlight. So it causes the sun to rise and set an hour later according to the clock. We're basically adding an hour of natural daylight to our afternoon when we implement daylight saving time. Changes in the time do not make much sense, however, the nearer you get to the equator, where the daylight doesn't really change much from one season to the next. Or near the poles for the opposite reason, because the closer you get to the north and south poles, daylight can vary drastically between seasons. And so that wraps up today's episode on daylight saving time. I wouldn't call it a controversial topic, but it's definitely one that people are either they don't care about at all, or they want one time permanently, whether that's standard time or daylight saving time. Personally, if there's some way that I could get out or 5 or 6 p.m. and it not be pitch black outside, I would be very happy with that. Of course, I'm also in the Northeast, so our seasonal changes are a bit more dramatic than if you were to live further south or closer to the equator. So feel free to tweet at me at Motley Experience. That's MOTLEYXPERIENCE. I know you guys are out there. I know you guys are listening. Let's start some sort of conversation, some sort of community around the topics of these episodes. What are your thoughts on this episode, previous episodes, your thoughts on daylight saving time? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you suffer from seasonal depression? If so, what are some workarounds, if any, that you've found? Share so other people can learn and live a better, healthier life. That would be absolutely fantastic. You can also reach out to me at ATMarusis on Instagram, on the Twitter, and on TikTok. If you do and you're trying to reference this show, let's get the hashtag Stuff Explained going. So whether you're tweeting or communicating in any way on social media to my personal account, ATMarusis, or to the show's account, to the blog's account, Motley Experience, make sure to use the hashtag Stuff Explained. Let's get this baby going and growing. And that was my sales pitch for the evening. Thank you very much for listening. I'll talk to you guys next week. Stuff Explained is written and produced by me, Aristides Marousas. Music is produced by the talented Greg Massey of Retcon Industries. Visit themotleyexperience.com for more thoughtful original content, and you can also find links to the sources used for each episode of Stuff Explained. Like us on Facebook at The Motley Experience, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Motley Experience, and use the hashtag Stuff Explained. If you like this episode, leave a review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thank you for listening.